Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios. We're a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I've been involved in 17 startups and several unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also the co-founder of Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So with that, I have an incredible guest today. So Csaba is the founder and analytics director of DTAG Analytics. I mean, he's got an incredible background. He's a data analyst by profession, but a storyteller at heart. I love that. I don't want to hear more about that. He's had 19 plus years worth of industry experience, and in his areas of expertise in things like leadership and collaboration, training with teams, complex data research, analytics, and synthesis, project management all over the world, and also with incredible technologies like Elastic Kibana, Cloudera, Impala, Cognos, etc. So raised and born in Hungary, but traveled between continents. And yes, he went to Harvard University and he studied psychology. So he's a humanist seeking knowledge and wisdom at all times. So with that, I'd like to bring Csaba on. Hi, Csaba. How are you?
Hi, Gary. Very good. Thank you for having me.
So I got a question for you. How in the world did you get to Harvard?
It's kind of a long story.
I want to go to Harvard, and how fast can I get there, or what happened?
Well, if you want the cynical answer, these universities pride themselves on making sure that they have at least one representative from pretty much each country around the world. So all I had to do was to be the best candidate from Hungary, applying as a foreign student. I mean, it took a bit of doing and some testing. I had my interview in Austria. I had the good fortune of, staying on with my assigned graduate student and walking around the Christmas fair in the wintertime. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. Mostly it was a combination of a bit of, effort and good luck.
How was it when you went to Harvard? Now, what happened the first day you came in? Did you think, wow, I hit the jackpot, or we were like scared?
I was scared. Probably that would be the closer. I was not necessarily, I was totally blown over and impressed by the campus, and later on by the opportunities presented. It was also a very rarefied atmosphere. Took a little bit of doing to get used to the society that emerged in campus, but overall, it was a fantastic experience. I'm very, very fond of my alma mater.
Now, how was it when you got to meet? You must have had some very interesting, famous people there. How was it to meet them? Were they like normal when you talked to them, or what was it like?
Well, the famous people you don't necessarily, get to talk to from that close up. We had the heir to the Davidoff family there. I believe Natalie Portman overlapped a little bit. I just missed Mr. Zuckerberg. I graduated a few years before he came on the scene, but I was actually privy to the to the prototype version that ultimately eventually evolved into Facebook. So it was a brilliant experience, exactly because it put you in contact with and in the same sphere with the best minds in pretty much all of the businesses and the sciences. And that is why it's a tremendous opportunity. I was always trying to take advantage of and to experience as many different types and flavors and philosophies as I could, and that was the perfect place to do it.
Now, how was it in the wintertime? Was it cold in Boston?
It was bitterly cold. It was tremendously bad, and the worst is actually not even so much the winter. It's the turning point between winter and spring when everything melts and you still have about 1.5 feet of snow, and in places 1.5 feet of slush that you have to trudge through. So, yeah, it took some getting used to, but in the end, I think it was definitely it's worth it to put up with the weather in New England.
No, I remember going to the Coop, walking down the Coop. I did when I was finishing my master's degree at another university. I actually used the library up there, and I remember walking over to the coop, and it was freaking the snow got inside of my shoes, and my shoes were freezing actually. And I'd had to take my shoes off. It was that cold. I'd have warmed my feet up. And I was like, oh my God, this is really cold. But beautiful place, especially in the summertime, by the way. I like watching the rowing, down the lake. Was it the Charles River? And just a wonderful place. And by the way, I don't know if you like lobster, but man, they got some good lobster around Boston. Real, real good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, so you did that. So you spent 4 years there. Now you're a psychology major. What kind of psychology did you study?
Initially, I was actually studying neurobiology and psychology as a joint major. I took some time off between my second and third year, and when I returned, they basically had canceled the specific program, so I had to choose whether I wanted to go the hardcore biology route or towards the social sciences, and I ultimately ended up studying organizational psychology, social psychology for the most part. I'm definitely was always very much interested in communication, how it works, what makes it work, and so that's ultimately the path that I took. But I'm still very much, let's say, I don't know. I was raised in a very scientific environment. I'm very fond of the hard sciences, and neurobiology still has a soft spot in my heart.
Well, then what happened when you're reading Carl Rogers and client-centered therapy? How did you feel it?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with psychology is that you're presented with so many different theories, just, a whole constellation of this is how it works, that's how it works, and you're supposed to come up with, okay, so which of these is actually true? They can't all be correct at the same time, and that actually was frustrating in the beginning. What kind of settled it for me is that in fact all of them are different angles of understanding the human experience. They're not mutually exclusive. They do in fact all describe part of it. Where we're lacking, so to speak, is there isn't a unified grand field theory to pull it all together. We don't, we're getting there, but it's not yet on the table. And so instead of being frustrated by, okay, so which of these is actually the true path, it ultimately becomes a part of a greater understanding the more you're able to look at it from different perspectives. So it turned out to be, for me at least, a very rewarding experience.
So what happened? So you graduated from Harvard. What did you do? Did you come right back over? I know you were working with you worked with a company called CGI in Greater Boston area for a year, and then you worked for Symphony, right?
Mm-hmm.
For I guess what?
7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
So basically, it's kind of a long story, but the strategic consulting company was at the time a much smaller startup that became absorbed by CGI. We were dealing with essentially helping procurement of large corporations and government entities. So specifically, I was assigned to the state of Rhode Island to optimize their purchasing programs, and I spent a bit of actually about a year and a half working on procurement of office supplies in the millions of dollars. How do we concentrate spend? How do we get them the best deal possible? And from there, I was approached with an opportunity to join this quirky, unknown startup called Symphony that was engaged in the business of essentially trying to build a natural language processing system to analyze online content, to analyze media. And I decided to take the plunge, and it was actually, became the direction for the rest of my career, and that's where I was first exposed to this idea of teaching machines how to understand language, how to comprehend, and to essentially, high volume processing that a human simply doesn't have the time or capacity to do. And that, it's been an uphill ever since, because I decided to stick with it. Symphony ultimately got acquired and became part of TNS, which is one of the oldest and largest market research companies out there, which in turn became part of the Kantar Media group before I left in 2011.
And so you did that. So you went down through that. So you're doing Kantar. So when did the bug start to bite you? I know you went to Microsoft too. You spent almost 7 years at Microsoft, right?
Yeah. So the bug was probably right around 2008. I dug in. I was spending a lot of time with major clients in the financial sector, and it was then really that sort of the internet came alive in the sense that you began to be exposed to these vast networks of connections. That's when Twitter really kicked into high gear. Facebook was becoming a little more than just a way to connect with your college friends, and it just kind of all came together because I began to essentially see the power and the incredible potential that this new form of communication, this whole social network slash social media content represented. Um, and I became firmly convinced that, in the grand scheme of things, there were several seminal events, in the development of humankind. The invention of fire, writing, the wheel, and the printing press, and this is akin to one of those shifts, in my opinion. I'm not revealing any new secrets that the internet is a revolutionary technology, and the way that we've been able to use it is really changing the way that all humans live. And so I became convinced that I became dedicated to the idea of trying to understand this and essentially trying to see what benefit can be derived from it through a better understanding of how it works. And we're trudging down that path. I don't think the work will ever be done, but I'm constantly amazed at sort of the both the changes as well as the outputs and the results of what is happening.
That's interesting. By the way, how did you ever get to Washington, the state of Washington? What did you wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to Washington State. I like drizzly rain and that kind of thing." What happened?
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned at the top that the opportunities are not equally distributed. Well, it was much the same. I was fortunate enough to be presented with a chance to work with one of the largest and sort of most well-equipped technologically and from a development standpoint, really great environment. And Microsoft, they had a policy that if you wanted to join the team, you had to be on board and you had to actually come. Had to come to Washington. So that was the impetus. I was very how shall I phrase it? Very much impressed. Washington in the summertime is beautiful. That's why they only bring people to interview between
Something, but a
June
lot
and
of
August.
other times of the year it gets. I've been up there and I've seen people outside when it's raining, thinking like this is nice weather. Like it was like
Oh
weird.
yeah,
They're like
oh yeah.
they were
As long
walking
as
around, and it was like it's raining, but they were like walking down the streets. I'm like, I've never seen anything like. Oh, I've seen it in London.
yeah, it's much the same. I mean, it's basically like if there's no hailstones, it's a sunny day in Seattle. That's
Yeah,
basically
that's
the way you look
exactly
at
right.
it.
And people seem real happy. That I went down to Pike's Market and had crab, and I thought, well, I can, for a couple of days I can get used to this, but it was weird, that's for sure.
Look, the landscape, the natural surroundings is just unbeatable. Like literally, you walk around, Mount Rainier looks like Mount Fuji, for lack of a better comparison. You're surrounded by green and just wonderful forests and streams and lakes. I love nature. I love to hike. I've got I go out with my dogs pretty much every other day to experience, and I always find something new, a new stream, a new lake, a new forest. It's gorgeous. It's great for the plants. The lack of sunlight does wear on some that are not born and raised in an environment that is used to it. So the Dutch, the Irish, the Scandinavians seem to take to this like ducks to a pond. For myself, I need those sun breaks that
So what do
my
you do?
colleagues.
Like when you need a sun break, what do you do? Get one of those special lights and put it on your desk?
That works for some. I've tried that too. It's I think a bit overrated.
Auto light. Yeah, that was the name of the company.
You don't have to go far, right? It's a very unique geographical characteristic of the huge mountains, the Cascades and the Olympic Mountains that creates this cauldron. So as long as you can move about maybe 50, 75 miles out, it actually quote unquote becomes normal. You just have to go over the pass, and on the other side in central and eastern Washington, there's plenty of sunlight. So that's what you do, and you can't always take a weekend getaway to the Bahamas or Hawaii, but that's the other recommendation that many around here seem to be doing.
And so, what do people do for fun up there? So they go hiking. I mean, what do they do? I lived in Seattle a while myself, but it was like the mountains and boating. They were boating at the time. So, what do people do for fun? Is nature?
It's a combination. First of all, the whole restaurant scene, microbrewery scene has really it was already bustling when I arrived, but that was 10 years ago, and now it's burgeoning, or I don't even know what to call it. It's verdant, just like the natural surroundings. But yeah, people do spend a lot of time outside. Like you said, a little bit of rain, drizzle, sleet, fog is not going to bother anyone. They're going to be cycling and hiking.
It doesn't even bother them at all. Like they're walking around like it's sunny.
Yeah.
You've never seen
anything
like it. Like that was the most incredible scene I've ever seen in my life. Like I said, the only other place I've been in is London, where people were laying down in Hyde Park, and it was kind of like strange like that too. Not as bad, but it was like you get used to it. So you did. So when you did Wayfair, were you in Seattle or did you go to Boston again? Were you working
I went back to Boston. It was kind of a strange interlude time. It was just before the formal setup and the funding of my company, and I really wanted to give it another shot. I'm very fond of New England, as from my perspective, it's as close to home, quote unquote, as it gets in the U.S. I just like the surroundings, the wrought iron, fencing and the gates and the brick and the cobblestone, the quote unquote traditional European atmosphere. It's a very walkable city. It's small enough that, in about an hour and a half, you can get from any point to any point, human scale. And so I wanted to try that. And plus it was a great opportunity. I mean, Wayfair was, going up like a rocket. There was just a lot of storming and forming going on. And I had the good fortune of being part of that and being able to look at the analytical side of the behavioral part of a consumer work. So that they obviously have an online sales business in the home furnishings space, and they were very, very much focused on learning as much as they could about what drove people to do things, how they could serve their customers better, what could be done to take it to the next level, to analyze what is happening online. And so for me, I'd always been focused on the expressions, on the text, on what people said, on how they said it, and what was contained therein. So this is a great compliment to look at it from, quote unquote, the other side, is what they actually did, where they went. But yeah, I was back in Boston. It was in one way a successful venture because it allowed me to get a chance to take a look at it again. My family actually decided that they preferred Seattle, so we ended up not transplanting everybody. And then the nice little segue into COVID happened, and I was back home anyway, so we ended up sticking around here on the West Coast.
Wow, that's great. So let's talk about DTAG and what was the idea? You formed it in 2018. You're the founder and analytics director. What made you come up with the idea of DTAG? And you weren't a computer scientist. Well, how did you come up with all these incredible ideas?
So look, the idea had been sort of in the back of my mind for years and years. It's like one of those, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And I had long ago decided that I wanted to take a shot. I wanted to be able to determine my own sort of fate and future. I wanted to basically start my own company and try this idea of going after the meaning in online communication. I'd been working with engineering teams, software developers, computational linguists for basically more than a decade and a half at that point, right? I started it in 2003. I've been always very actively engaged in testing and contributing to the various iterations and versions of the platform development at Symphony and TNS. I got a chance to actually get a close look at the other companies and the other divisions within Kantar that were involved in either same or similar projects, collaborate with them, which is why I was able to go over to Microsoft to basically build such an in-house system on my own. And so after having gone through 5 iterations of essentially building something like this, I decided that, okay, now I think I have enough under my belt that I can do this on my own. And the other thing is just the freedom, the sort of the responsibility and the freedom of being able to manage your own affairs, right? If in many cases, your environment, your setup, your boss, your department, your funding is going to be determinant of your chances of success. I wanted to see whether I could sort of succeed on my own terms and be responsible for not just quote unquote my own part, but in creating the environment that allows the work to happen. In terms of the technology piece, yeah, I'm not a coder. I'm not a software developer. What I do have is because of the years of working with these tools, a very good understanding of the whole thing. So, what goes into creating the software? What kind of database structures do you need? What is the effect of data transfer and the network that you put behind it? It's like, I'm the project manager, so to speak, that is able to communicate with the technical team, with the database engineer. I speak their language, and they provide the expertise, and so that has turned out to be a really good collaboration, because I kind of bridge the gap between the business side, the customer side, because I've spent a lot of time working with and managing the customer relationships, but I also have very good rapport with the teams that actually make it happen in the background.
Well, that's great. And so, how does it feel going from Wayfair to DTAG?
Well, like arriving at Harvard at 18 years old, it's a huge opportunity. It's great. We finally got a bit of seed funding, and this is on for real. But at the same time, it's a tremendously daunting experience of now you're responsible for it all. Now you have to build your system, you have to build the office, you have to build your team, you have to get your customer base together. So it was a huge learning curve. Like I said, I'd gone through the motions many times before, but this time without a safety net. When you go out on your own for the first time, it's a bit daunting, but for the most part, it was exhilarating. I was very lucky.
Did you get scared at all? Were you nervous at all? And saying that, did you ever doubt yourself when you got started? And how did you?
Oh my gosh, did I ever doubt myself when I got started? Look, it's an oscillation thing, right? You start out because you feel confident. You think you're going to change the world, and you're convinced that your own perspective is right. But in my opinion, at least, you're not thinking correctly if you don't challenge yourself, if you don't doubt yourself. What am I doing wrong? What could I be doing better? Why is this not working? The trick is not to get paralyzed, right? The trick is to learn from and move forward and roll and reconfigure your approach and then just keep going until you succeed. That's where it's not so much doubt that it would succeed. That sort of firm belief has thankfully stayed with me. And that's the other thing, right? Nobody can do this alone. You need a team behind you, so that when you're having a down day, the others pull you up, and vice versa. So we've gone through many oscillations of where everything seemed lost and hopeless, and then something clicks, right? If you have the right team, if you have the right combination of the talent and the thinking capacity, you can always come up with a solution. And thankfully, so far, we've been able to do that.
Yeah, you've done a great. Now, how is business?
Business is going. Basically, we've accomplished what we set out to do, which is to carve a name for ourselves in the industry. We are just now in the process. Actually, no, we have signed the contract with the sixth sort of top 20 pharma company out there. I'm very hopeful. If we can keep going at this pace, then I definitely see bright things in the future. We've basically gone through the development path. We've created a platform that is now quote unquote stable. Again, the work is never done. There's a mile long list of things that I want to continue to develop and include, but there's no shortage of ideas. It's not a matter of, okay, where do we go from here? It's a question of what's the priority, what can yield the greatest success, and how do we choose our steps most wisely. But the opportunities just keep coming. We are now at a point where we have to be careful about what to accept and what to turn down, and that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's a fantastic problem. So it's a lot better to figure than when you first came to Stanford the first day, weren't sure what you're going to do, right? I mean, it's good to know the map going forward. So what could you, we have entrepreneurs from all over the world, from the Czech Republic, from Hungary, from Switzerland, Germany, Austria, you name it. We're in 51 countries. But what would you say to them? They're getting ready to start a company. What would you say to them today about what it's like to start a company and how to stay positive?
Ooh, very good question. Not as easy to answer. Look, I think the most important thing beyond kind of having belief in yourself and your ideas is to always be learning. I don't know if you remember Glengarry Glen Ross, always be closing. You have to always be learning. You have to be forcing yourself and exposing yourself to new opportunities and ways of thinking that is true throughout building your team, choosing which conferences to attend, choosing incubators and experts and advisors such as yourself. You can't do it alone, right? You have to live in an ecosystem, and every engagement is going to make you better, is going to make your idea better, is going to make your company work more smartly. So managing that and balancing it is tricky, but it's the only way to success, in my opinion. So my advice is to always not only be open to learning, but to seek out opportunities to challenge yourself. And yeah, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be a lot of misfires, and there's going to be a lot of sort of, oh my gosh, why did I just waste 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months on this? But you learn, right? You gain an experience that you would never otherwise have had, and it does in fact click into place. Something that we did 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, that ultimately didn't yield any results at the time, circles back and becomes a new opportunity, a new business idea, a new feature, and a way to go forward. So just always learn and keep note of what has happened in the past.
Yeah, that's right. Always learn. You got to be a lifeline student. So we're coming up to the top of the show. What are some closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of each other?
Closing thoughts. Look, I mean, I spent my pretty much my career trying to understand sort of human society, whether we think, the way we communicate through what's published online. I don't have to tell you that now everything is online. Every utterance, every whisper, every conversation, everything is there. And so what we're trying to do is to go from describing what happened to understanding why something happened and why things are the way they are, and then going to, okay, what's going to happen? That's really been our focus. So one of the things that I wanted to mention is that predictive analytics is real. Yes, there's a lot of what's the word here? Sizzle, as opposed to steak.
Sizzle without the steak. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be careful about how much faith you put into these things. But I myself am personally convinced that it is absolutely possible. It is absolutely and then very important to be able to do. And so that's one of the directions that we're taking the company in. And we have a new essentially product launch coming up that I'm tremendously excited about. Getting a hold of me is quite easy. You can go to d-tag.com or look me up on LinkedIn. The name spelling is unfortunately not as easy for most English speakers, but the good part is it's reasonably unique. So I don't think there are very many other Don Chazis out there. So at least you can find me easily. But look, I see.
Csaba, what's the best way? LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is direct. I always
connect with Csaba through LinkedIn. Check out their website. What's the website? What website do you want us to go to? D-Tag. So if you can give them the information on your site, that would be great.
Yeah, d-tag.com is our homepage. We all of our contact info and the projects and the products are on there. And I'm always available. It's one of those things where you're running an enterprise like this. You have to be open to opportunities.
No, that's great. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much. tell Kinga that I said hello, and hopefully she feels better soon. To all my audience out there, thanks for joining one more time to GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And I'm your host, Gary Fowler. Stay tuned for another exciting edition. We will not be broadcasting on Thursday. I'm actually on my way to Stanford University, but we will be back again next Tuesday. So see you soon. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. May God bless everybody out there. Take care of yourself.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Gary.
Take
Bye.
care.